Hi, my name is John, and this is Business Update. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about the recent cancellation of one of the most popular anime series of all time, Cowboy Bebop, has come to an end. So, after the recent launch last month, a few weeks ago, so fans were able to see the take live adaptation of a very popular anime series, which is Cowboy Bebop. Actually, I didn't know of the series until the what do you call this? Until the live action was mentioned, and that got me curious, and I was able to see the live action, which got mixed reviews for my personal taste. And obviously, at the end of the day, if majority or if there's not enough moviegoers or viewers watching the series, then it doesn't make sense for the studio, in this case Netflix, to foot the bill if it doesn't make sense or it doesn't turn a profit. Now the question here is, what led to the demise of or the cancellation of the TV series here? So let's take a look here. So according to the article here at TheVerge.com, they mentioned that Netflix Cowboy Bebop has been canceled. So let's see here. Now, question is, why will they cancel now? Did they follow the source material, or did they deviate from the original anime here? Now, obviously, based on the presentation in their, as you can see in the screen here, the photos of the characters are somewhat different from how they're portrayed in the anime here. In particular, if you look at the character of Faye Valentine, the female character here, which was played by what's her name, Danielle Pineda. I thought she was a Filipina, but she was a Mexican. But anyway, so the character of Faye Valentine in the anime was a bit scandalous in a sense, in terms of how she was presented in her clothing as well as her character portrayal here. Now, what's interesting in the actual live adaptation, the female was totally covered up, less scandalous, so to speak, and the character narrative has been changed, so to speak. Now, obviously, this is the prerogative of the writer from the TV series here to do what they want. But the question is, are they staying true to the narrative of how it was presented in the anime here? And this goes also to the other characters. Speak Spiegel, Jet was one of the best characters that was adopted here. And then you have the other characters, Vicious, and then how the love interest of Speak Spiegel, Julia here, was portrayed, which is kind of mixed bag, so to speak, and how the story ended. Obviously, they wanted to continue the series, but based on the anime, it only ended up to the first season, because they want to finish or conclude the story arc from there. And obviously, the ending made it so. And obviously, Netflix chose to, wanted to continue the series if it was popular. Well, sad to say, that was not accomplished here. Now, you can see here the one of the main issues that was mentioned here, why the show failed. It was criticized from its weak pacing, obviously. So if you haven't watched the anime series, obviously you'll get mixed signals in terms of how are they trying to portray the main characters versus the characters, how they were portrayed, and how the characters evolve over the series here. And also, it was criticized from its cheap looking costumes and set. Now, they tried to copy the intro exactly to how the anime was presented, which was tremendous. Sad to say, they did that, try to replicate that also in the actual content of the anime here, which is kind of surprising. You wanted to use the familiarity, the popularity of that anime, and yet you wanted to change the content of it. Then obviously the fans, the main fans who supported who have watched the series, would be confused as to what are they trying to portray here. And based on the article, they mentioned that they wanted to veer away from the source material, try to differentiate, which is I don't see the whole point of doing that, because that's why MCU has been trying to copy and stay close to the source material as possible. But if you try to deviate, look at Eternals, That's why it was a big flop, considering, and trying to change the narrative or the story arc of the different characters, or the story arc as a whole, can undermine the whole experience, so to speak here. And if we were to look further, it failed to capture the essence of what made the 1996 anime become one of the best animes at that time. So, question here is, what does the show, or even the actors, going to react? Now, one of the main characters, John Cho, who played Speak Spiegel, tweeted that he's okay, and but not all other characters or other stars were on the same boat here. We had, where was it? Ah, yes. One of the main characters, Faye Valentino, which was played by Daniela Pineda, responds to critics regarding of how she was presented. Now, obviously, if you were to look closely in the photo here, now obviously she's not an exact replica of the character here, which is, I think that's reasonable. But how she is presented here now, obviously in the anime, she's more scandalous here, or more. I think the character overall was supposed to be a femme fatale here, but a flawed character here, which, by the end of the story arc here, you'll feel she has grown as a person. So she was selfish and a dangerous person, obviously, and obviously throughout the series, her character has evolved to become a better person, which I think many of us could relate. But sad to say, instead of understanding why the fans were they felt betrayed or dismayed with regards how the character was portrayed, was kind of disappointing. And in the article, she mentions that the costume does not make sense, obviously, as mentioned, but trying to explain that, it's unreasonable to have that same expectation. The whole point is you're trying to replicate, or to uh, to 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 present it in a live action as close as possible. Now, the writers chose to veer away from that, which is, obviously, there are two reasons why the character was that popular. Obviously, for a female character, the anime was geared towards to a male segment population, right? So if it's geared towards, so you want to showcase more of a female, or of a sexy female here, and that's just on the first layer. And the second layer here is the character itself, how the character, why the character was the way she is. So why did she present herself like that? Obviously, using that to her advantage to, to pursue whatever her needs was. And obviously, as you got to know the character over the course of the series, you got to know the person, what her story was, how she came to be, what she was, which, obviously she was a flawed person. And throughout at the end of the series, she became a person despite all of those. That's why it's not just her. You have Speak Spiegel and you have Jet also, flawed characters, but came together and, became better persons in a sense, or not to say best persons, but became more relatable, because obviously at the end of the story, the drama behind this, the action scenes here, or in the anime here, is, being able to relate to the different characters within the story. That's why many movies or animes are such beloved, because of its narration of how it's being told. And obviously, veering away from it can be disastrous here. And obviously, it's not just the actress here who were, you could consider sour graping in a sense. You also have the writer of the series here, Naomi Markman, and you can see in her Twitter handle alone, identity politics is involved here, which is kind of disappointing, because there are high expectation. And people were optimistic that, hopefully they could recapture the success of what made the anime that successful. And she goes on to say here, not to rub it in your face, but as an individual who has read the Cowboy Bebop season 2 script more than anyone else in the world, you're missing out. And the fact that you're, cursing people for, or blaming other people for not supporting it, and focusing on season 2 rather than creating the best first season of any series, should be the primary objective here. That's why, if you do not stay true to the original material, and if you try to veer away, trying to differentiate, then what's the point of adapting the live action here? think of how Harry Potter was that successful, right? They did not try to veer away from the books from J.K. Rowling, but they try to stay close to it so that people who are fans of the books would support it, and then more people would support it if the story is that compelling. That's why if the book is best selling, regardless if it's in the book or in the movie, people would come in droves and would support and watch the film, which would earn hundreds or even billions of dollars here. And trying to veer away is a big mistake, and we've seen that in many instances, not just in just take a look at the adaptation of superheroes. Look at the Superman adaptation. There are several iterations already. Obviously the iconic is the Christopher Reeve adaptation, which stayed true even up to all these years, and then the Brandon route, Superman Returns, didn't fare well, but the one with Man of Steel from Henry Cavill did better than most. So you can just imagine if they stayed true to the character, they could keep on churning out. It's not just Superman. You had Batman, which had different iterations already, and then sooner or later, even Disney, which bought Marvel Studios, created Marvel Studios, realized, there's a potential here to maximize or generate millions or billions of dollars here just by replicating, carbon copying the source material from whether it's in the books or even in the comics here. Anyway, so the issue here is why was it that why did they make the changes here so significant here? Was it to did they think that it was going to be a better product here? And obviously the changes that they made obviously offended many of the loyal fan base, and it's not just the loyal fans who've watched who have watched the original anime, but obviously as it stands on its own, can it stand on its own, meaning in terms of its merit, of its character driven, the story arc, on how it's presented action wise and so forth? Did it merit a great support, or should it be continued to create several series other than the first one that they mentioned? And obviously from the very beginning, the promotional images from the character, as I mentioned, from Faye Valentine was totally different, and obviously that was a start of things what to expect here. And obviously from the original series, they tackled very complex story arcs or themes, sorry, from loneliness and existential dread, which is decades away from people are experiencing now with the pandemic, and obviously with social media at the forefront here. And obviously there were high expectations from how successful it was in the anime to can it live up to its predecessor, so to speak. That's why there were a lot of skepticism here, and obviously it was not the only live action that that failed in the past. And another anime that I recalled was the Avatar, the Last Airbender, not James Cameron's film, but M. Night Shyamalan's film, which was terrible. I was so disappointed because I watched the animated version of the Avatar, the Last Airbender. They had three books or three series that they could have followed. If they were to stay true with the character, with the story, it would have been successful. But again, another good example, if you veer away from the story and try to change it fundamentally, then it would not make sense anymore. And obviously if you're involving CGI here to impress on your audience, then at the end of the day, without the special effects, would the story stand on its own? Which obviously did not. And that's a cautionary taste, because I think we've discussed it in previous live streams in our business focus live, that other studios or streaming company like Amazon is trying to revive or do a live action also of another not necessarily an anime, but a popular game of Mass Effect. Now there's a good story of that based on narrative. I played all three not all three versions, but all three titles of the Mass Effect, not Andromeda, the last one. Based on the games that I play the three parts of the Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, you have 3 seasons of content already there. But the question is, will they stay true to the original material here? So obviously casting the right actor is important, and the story arc, actually they just have to replicate of how BioWare presented the story here, meaning in terms of the character Shepard, which is, I think it's gonna be hotly debated who's going to portray the character, because in the game, the character was optional. You can play a male version of Shepard or a female version of Shepard. Now, for the game, it's okay, but for a TV series, it has to be believable. Would a female-led character be believable, or a male-led character here? It's nothing to say that not a female. There's no female captain here, but in terms of the action-driven sources, just like how how James Bond is trying to create a female Bond character, is it believable? So obviously there's a lot of things that has to be considered. Who's going to portray the lead character, the supporting characters, and obviously the stories, how they all go together is critically how they meet the different characters, especially it's done in space. So if they can do it, do justice how Mandalorian does it, I think there's always hoping that they can do justice to the original material here. But based on track records in the past, that's not too appealing or too promising here. So here's to hoping that they'll make a better presentation of it. And obviously another popular game that's going to be showcased, I think, next year is Uncharted. But in terms of the character here, I don't think that Tom Holland is the right actor for it, because the adult character that is portrayed in the games is nowhere near close to where Tom Holland is. So it's nothing against the actor. I mean, he's a tremendous actor and so forth. But portraying the character of Nathan Drake, and actually his partner there of which was the character of Sully, which was played by Mark Wahlberg, looks more closely to Nathan Drake than Tom Holland is. But we'll see if it would hamper their success in the box office, or I may be wrong here. Anyway, that concludes our update for this week. Come back again on Wednesday for more business updates. So it's the holidays here, so we still have, I think, 2 more weeks to go before the new year. So anyway, so if you have any questions with the topics today, if you agree or disagree, leave your comments down below and we'll have our conversation there. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.